Well, hello again. It's Terry from Jensen. It's good to see you back. Um, Good morning, good day, good afternoon, wherever you are. Wherever you are, I hope you're staying warm. I hope you have electricity. And I hope if you can get the vaccines, you're getting the vaccines that are necessary for COVID. So, all that aside, we're here actually to talk about MiYO today. And today's topic will be the one shot technique, floating MiYO color on color. So let's go ahead and get started. It'll be a quick process. So here we go, a little color background there, one shot technique, color, floating color on color with MiYO, just like I said. It's kind of a review for some people, but for those of you who haven't, quick review. Start with a clean substructure that you don't have to sandblast it, you just have to have it clean. Apply an even layer of nsync paste glaze like paint. You just want an even layer, and apply layers or areas of MiYO color sequentially, taking care to keep layers separating by floating them. You don't try to push through anything. So just like this separation in this jar, the specific gravity of the colors in nsync paste glaze allows them to be stacked on top of each other. However, care must be taken to not manually push different materials into each other. This is the way we can do numerous effects at one time before we fire it. So simply put, we want to have 1 plus 1 plus 1 equal 3, and not 1 plus 1 plus 1 equal 1 or 1.2 or 1.3. So let's float some colors on colors and give a demonstration of what I'm talking about. You've seen my palette before. If you've seen these, the initial step is to apply a base coat of nsync paste glaze. So I've already mixed up all the colors on this palette. But always mix first with a non-metallic spatula to achieve a workable consistency, which is what I'm doing with what's left of this jar. And although it looks thin, it can still be a little bit on the pasty side. You use a non-metallic spatula because you don't want any metal particles getting in there and when it fires making it dingy look. So non-metallic spatula keeps it clean. So you see it right there in probably almost the middle on the flat part. This is the consistency from the jar, and maybe it's not ideal. It looks good, but let's see. I take my composite spatula right there, ideally as thick as possible, while still spreading evenly like a thick paint or like thick, expensive nail polish, as my wife would say. While you can use any brush you're comfortable with, you may find a number 1 sable brush applies very evenly like a nail polish brush. There's a reason all nail polish brushes are about the same size, because it's able to apply a viscous material in a nice even coat. So when I pick that up with my brush, you see it's just a bit pasty, so it should be as thick as possible, and again, yet still flowable. So if we put it on, you see where it's kind of lumpy and pasty? Yeah, it's not what I want. I want it to look good. So let's magnify that. For this consistency is too thick for best application. Notice a pasty texture, not smooth. If you've seen any of my webinars, other ones, I call this the sour cream type consistency. You know, it spreads, but it's lumpy. So I have some glaze liquid right there, and also in the bow tie shaped one on the right. I have some on the left side of that, or the right side of that. And I'm getting just a little bit of liquid on the tip of my brush, the last 2 millimeters of it, and I'll kind of jiggle it into that paste glaze. Now, when it gets kind of a little bit of a bouncy effect to it, as opposed to a pasty, it'll go on smoothly like a latex paint or nail polish application. So it's thin just enough to flow evenly. So let's take a closer look at that so you see. The thing is, you want an almost parallel application, just like if you saw nail polish being applied to a nail, and very light pressure, almost just letting the brush let the material flow, like a fountain pen tip. And I know I date myself with fountain pens, but you know, some people remember them. So a very light coat over the whole restoration. I roll the surface in light to make sure there's no dry areas. So now I'm preparing colors for application. So I have some shade A there, and that's mixed. Like I told you, I mixed this before I brought this camera on. And then I'm going to add a little bit of liquid to my mix there, just like I did with the paste glaze, to get it thin. If I just want a real translucent film, I'll thin it down a lot. If I want it to go from like an A1 to an A3, I'll leave it pretty thick. Still thin it down like the paste glaze, but it just depends. So I'm taking some clementine from off camera right here. And yeah, I got a little bit of a a drool right there, but luckily I was able to edit it out. I like the clementine for root sections and also for central fossa and fissures. It looks like dentin. And the storm's a blue-gray. It's great for the translucency above a halo. So that's what we have there. And the other colors I've got thin enough in the wells that I can use them directly from the wells. So I'm going to only show you a little bit of adding the A right here because I'm going to show this again, and I was off camera a little bit and I realized after I took the video. Next, I wipe off where I want my root section, which is where I'm going to put the clementine. So why do I wipe off the paste glaze or the shade A? Because we want everything real thin right around the margin so I can apply it, and all the MiYO paste colors are self-glazing. Next, I'll apply the storm, the translucent blue-gray, and I'll apply that about 2 or 3 tenths above the incisal edge, and I only want it about 1/2 to 3/4 of a millimeter wide because most of your translucent windows are about 3 to 7 tenths thick. So I see it right there. Now what you see right there is how it will fire. It doesn't mean I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, I can put in any mamelon lobes or like a lateral segmented buildup line. And I just touch it, and you see my brush is never bending. I'm letting the material flow right off the brush. But because it's on the surface and I'm not applying any pressure, I can always dress up my application and make it faint or heavy or thin or thick, however I want it, because it's right on the surface. So what I'm going to do is thin out those blue lines, which look like translucency, and I'm going to feather it right there as it goes into the incisal edge. So you see me pulling it up and dressing it down. And that gives you that kind of frayed blue jean look at the end of your lobes, which we see in a lot of the lobes in the mamelon effects. Okay, now I'm applying a little bit of coral. And always remember to float the MiYO colors on top of the nsync paste glaze and not push through it. If you push through it, sometimes it will look like stripes. So mixing colors every day ensures a homogeneous dispersion of color particles. It makes them easier to apply. You only need about 6 to 8 seconds mixed per jar if they're already mixed, and about 2 or 3 seconds per well. So this is the Halo Spring. I lightly drag it across the incisal facial. There it is wet. And next you'll see it as it is fired. Unretouched fired. All I did was take it and put it on a stick and take a picture of it straight out of the oven. This is wet. You can see all the effects, and there it is straight from the oven. And you can see the incisal halo, you can see the translucency and the mamelon effect. So here's a closer look. We're seeing the same thing. Look at the glaze paste application, very parallel, very light. The brush is not really bending, I'm just sliding it on. If you apply it very evenly like this, you'll get a very, very homogeneous coat that has uniform thickness. No pressure on the brush. This is the shade A. All I'm doing is just enhancing the shade just a little bit. I want it very, very translucent. I'm not trying to take it up. I'm wiping off the material right at the root section. I use a clean brush to do that. A little bit of the clementine is added. It flows right off. I let it stay. Here I'm applying the storm. Same thing you saw before. To do all these effects, if you're not discussing it with someone, is about a 2.5 to 3 minute and 15 second, 3 minute and 30 second application. So there I'm applying my lobes. Same thing you saw before, but maybe a little bit easier to see. I'm dressing them up. Here is the coral, which is a bright peach meat type color. Okay, now I'm dressing up my storm application so it's not so thick and it's more feathered. This is the beauty of this material. You know exactly what it's going to look like before you fire it, so you might as well make every change you want before you fire it. Here I'm applying the spring halo right to the incisal facial edge. You just want to drizzle on there. Now, depending upon the angle you look at it, it'll look thicker. So it looks a little bit thicker here. And you see I've applied some hypocalcification at the CEJ. Now I'm feathering it down towards the incisal edge so it has kind of a fading effect to it, kind of a cascading effect. And technology scares me. So there it is, as fired. You see the hypocalcification, you see the translucent, the Babylon effect. That's all you need. So here's a few things. Floating color and color in the one shot technique. The plan is that there will be only one application of color and one firing, but the larger and heavier the case, the more complicated this becomes. That means the zirconia. Complications, thicker, greater mass substructures require more drying time and more cooling time. Thinner applications, viscosity-wise, when you make it thin, of the nsync paste glaze will require more temperature to make it shine, sometimes 20, 30 degrees. Thicker dimensions of nsync paste glaze and colors will need more time to dry. There is no such thing as too much drying or closure time. It won't hurt. Always look at the thickness or mass of a substructure before you try to rush it. Bigger cases take more time, and not allowing enough drying or cooling time usually causes problems, sometimes catastrophic, because the substructure cracks. So with a little practice with the MiYO, it makes perfect. So that's what I had to show you today. I want to thank you for your time. And I want to tell you, if you still have questions, call our technical department at 800-528-5531 for further assistance. Make sure to follow Jensen Dental on Facebook and Instagram so you can be updated every time we go live. You can also visit jensendental.com/MiYO to learn more about MiYO. And thanks for watching today, and please click the follow button to get notifications of future MiYO education tips and tricks. And remember, we have our new website that's up there, www.MiYOWORLD.com. And you can see all these videos and all tips and tricks, and we have forums. And I want you to stay tuned because we went over and we have some new topics coming up. We talk about Lumen and Lumen Plus next, and where to use them and what they can do and how you can mess with them and make them do tricks. And we're going to have some stuff on pink and how to place pink colors and manipulate them. And then we're going to do dialing in surface texture with the MiYO structure material. So we got some good topics coming up. They'll all be quick. I won't bore you. I'll try not to bore you. And I want you to be safe, practice social distancing, clean your hands. Just be careful and wear a mask. Okay? I want you to be here next time. So this is Terry from Jensen Dental. And I want to thank you very much for being here. And please see me again next time when I give you something else. And remember, you can see these videos on MiYOWorld.com or you can see them on YouTube. Thanks again. Be safe.